your postcards that you gave me. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on another Memories of Plymouth program. This is our sixth year, and we have been bringing you people from Plymouth and the surrounding communities, asking them if they would mind being interviewed and sharing their stories, their memories of their time in Plymouth. For some of these people, they were born here, educated, had a job here, or socialized, all of the above or one or two. What we have today, again, we have a special guest, and I would like to introduce him now if I could. John Renfrew Wood. John, thank
Hello,
you. Thank you for doing it. We have spent some time together. We've been chatting for a few months now, and today's our chance to share your stories and your memories with the town of Plymouth folks. Are you ready to begin?
Certainly. They let me out of jail, so I'm here.
All right, so if you want to pass on anything today, please feel comfortable. Oh, I should say, I'm Louise McCormick. I'm a member of the Historical Society, and it's been my pleasure working on this particular project for the past several years. Please state your name.
John R. Wood, Jr.
And your middle name is?
Renfrew.
And Renfrew, R-E-N-F-E-W.
Right.
Are you a namesake? Are you named after someone?
I was named after John S. Renfrew, Sr., who was a chief of the fire department at one time. He was a house builder, and he was an excellent hunter and fisher.
He was also the chief, am I correct, during the well-known Drapert and Maynard fire in the early part of the 20th century. John, share with your dad a little bit, if you would. What's your father's name? What's your father's name? And what did you do for an occupation?
Well, my father was John R. Wood, Sr. He spent a little while as the school board chairman for the schools in Plymouth. Then he owned Plymouth Plumbing and Heating, and hired Ernie Chamberlain and Bert Courier and Jack Sargent and me as part of the company. Then he went to work for the Plymouth Water and Sewer Department and took that over for probably 20 years.
Wow. How about Mom?
My mother was a tax collector for, I think, 32 years. And, tax collector and what else? Secretary for the Water and Sewer Department.
We should tell our audience her name.
Virginia M. Wood.
All right. John.
Well, Virginia M. Watson went before she got married.
Maiden name. That sounds good. Thank you. Where were you born, John?
In the old hospital up by Littlemore Falls.
All right, thank you. And you have brothers, sisters you'd like to share?
I have a brother, Richard, who died maybe a month ago, and a sister, Terry Wood, who married Floyd Colby and lives in Bristol.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Oh, you said to me, I thought it was a little interesting, and it's relevant later on. Mom lived in Laconia. She had sisters, correct? All right, I want to make sure that's known. Let's start on your education if we can. Most people know you because they think you were born and brought up in Plymouth. Not quite accurate. So where were you born?
I was born at the Plymouth Hospital, the old one.
But your education came where?
Well, when my father was drafted into the service as a CB, he had to go out to the West Coast, and while he was out there, my mother had to move the kids to Laconia, and I was in grade 1, 2, 4 at Academy Street School in Laconia.
All right. And this Academy Street School, was it a certain denomination? Was it a Catholic school?
It was a Catholic school with, they had maybe 5 or 6 nuns with long long rulers that were used to hit your hands when you were a bad boy or a girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And what happened when your dad arrived back from the service?
Oh, that was, we moved up to Plymouth, and we're in a couple of apartments. But I was, when we came back to Plymouth, I was in fourth, fifth grade in Spear, and then we moved to Memorial, and I was in 7th and 8th grade in Memorial building.
Wow. If we go back, can you remember the names of any teachers? And you might not be able to, it was quite a while ago, but when you were in Spear building, elementary.
We had one practice teacher, I remember, his name was Hart. And he was related to somebody, and he always wore white gloves because he had something wrong with his hands. There was Mrs. Smith was the 8th grade teacher, and everybody was amazed because she had purple hair, and that was a sort of a joke. There was Miss Spitzner,
right,
who was not afraid to hit you if you did something wrong, so nobody did anything wrong, and everybody got along good with her. Who else was there? Oh, and our favorite, Mr. Bagley.
So Mr. Bagley, I
Was the 8th
believe
grade teacher.
he would have graduated from Plymouth Teachers College at that time.
And he became a teacher in the grade school.
Pretty commonplace, I think. A lot of those graduates.
A lot of those people came from there. Yeah, Mr. Bagley, everybody loved him. He was smart, and he could do what's the things they have in the paper where you try to think of something and write it down. I can't remember.
Okay, we'll come up with that. You and I had the same teacher. We had Miss Spitzner together.
Yeah.
Not together, but all right.
Very strict.
And also Miss Riley.
Miss Riley was in the high school when I knew her, and you had to take typing class from her.
Okay.
Yeah, she was a nice lady.
You played sports when you were at the high school, and you had a coach that apparently did a lot of sports over time.
Well, we had the first coach we had was Bazzano, and then geez, I should have looked it up.
But did he coach basketball, football?
Yeah, you did all three sports.
He did all.
One coach.
There we go.
And not very many people to help. What was his name? I should have looked it up. He was assistant coach for a while. He was from the college. Can't remember it right now.
Well, that would have been commonplace too, to get some of our coaches from the college.
What was that guy's name?
It'll come back. It'll come back. John, you said if you ever got into trouble, you're in high school, I believe now, and you had the memory of whenever anybody did something inappropriate, they got into trouble, they were sent down to the certain room, and there was a clock there.
Right.
Tall clock?
Yeah, it was the famous clock. I was mowing a lawn at the auction house down on Highland Street on the right-hand side, and I had to go out in the building, and there was a clock out there. So I asked the owner, I said, where did the clock come from? He says, that's the clock that was in Zulis's waiting room. If you got in trouble, you had to go out and sit under the clock. And the clock would tick, 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 and eventually you fell asleep, so you couldn't cause any more trouble. But he had got the clock, and I wanted to buy it for the Historical Society. But he ended up taking it down to Tennessee, and we still haven't been able to find if it's still in Tennessee or not.
Great memory, great memory.
Yeah, well, let's hope it's right.
One of the things you had shared before was Mr. Zulius. He was trying to raise some funds for sports.
Oh yeah.
For uniforms, perhaps? Athletic uniforms. And what was he selling? He actually was the one that was selling?
Yeah, Charlie Julius, his son, his oldest son, he comes up to Plymouth football games. And he was telling me that when he was a kid, his father would send him, and the father would go with him and sell pencils for 5 cents a pencil, and that money went to buy uniforms. And that's how they funded the football team for uniforms and stuff. Hard work, but he got it done. George Julius knew what to do.
He made things happen, that's for sure. Let's see. Okay. After high school, did you further yourself in education? Did you go to college, university, someplace?
Yeah, they wouldn't accept me at Plymouth State, so I had to go to Keene State, and I spent 4 years down at Keene State. Yeah.
Memories there? What did you participate in? What did you enjoy?
I played soccer, basketball, tennis.
Oh, wow.
Girls.
Excuse me? Never mind. Pass on that one. All right. Let's see. Yeah. I had down that Coach Foley wanted you to play ball at Plymouth State.
He
must
did.
have been
He wanted me.
Yeah.
He recruited me to play at Plymouth, but there was some disagreements between the president and my father about some of the courses taught on Memorial School for the first, second, third, fourth grade, and how the teachers were coming from the college all the time, and so they could never reach an agreement, so I ended up at Keene.
And what was your program at Keene? What did you study?
Industrial arts.
All right. What does that mean for the audience, John? Industrial arts.
How to hammer nails, how to run machinery, how to use a saw.
Wow.
A lot of practical stuff on house building and house equipment, and it was something that every kid should have learned in school, but Keene had industrial arts and home economics, and Plymouth had typing and business, and so there were 2 different separations. It was that was good for both of us.
I'm going to regress just a little bit. Thinking about high school and maybe college life, what was the subject that you really enjoyed? And conversely, was there a subject that maybe you didn't enjoy so much?
Well, I really enjoyed industrial arts, running the machines and making different things, but I had a real hard time with electricity. And finally, the guy that ran the electricity at Keene State ended up at Plymouth. And when I took an extension course at Plymouth, I had him at Plymouth. And he was, and it wasn't, that field wasn't electricity, it was something about economics. And so I took the course, and he gave me an A, thank God.
Shh.
But I can't remember his name.
That's all right. That's all right.
I should have brought a yearbook.
Let's talk about some of the work you have done over the years. Where did you get employed? When you finished at Keene State College, where was your first job, position?
My first job was, I taught school in Ware, New Hampshire, and I was a basketball coach. And I taught 2 years there. Then I moved to Henniker School, and I'm probably the only person that taught at Ware and Henniker, and those 2 schools became John Stark High School.
Oh, all right.
So I was lucky that way.
In high school, what did you teach?
In high school, I started out, because they didn't have a social studies teacher, I taught social studies for 2 years. Then I went to Henniker and taught, my major was industrial arts.
Okay, that's good. Let's see.
And coaching all the time.
Wow, and when you say coaching, is that
Basketball, soccer, softball for the girls, baseball for the boys.
Wow.
You know, you had to do a lot when you're back in those days.
I was just
and
going-
you didn't get paid very much either.
Can you remember what your salary was for a sport way
What?
back when? What was your salary? How much did they pay you for
Oh
a
my
sport?
God.
Just
It was maybe very, very, probably $800 or something like that for
Okay.
2 sports. And,
2 sports.
you know, there wasn't very much money for teachers and athletic coaches or anything like back in those days.
But it
Now,
sounds like you were doing something every quarter. 4 quarters in a year, but it seems like you're doing a sport,
yeah.
so you're busy after school every day.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, being a shop teacher, I had to teach auto mechanics or driving, how to drive a car.
All right. Then we have you, let's see, you went with a principal to Ash Street School in Manchester. You
Yeah.
taught industrial arts there
Yeah.
too?
Huh?
And you taught industrial arts there too?
Yes, I had there's like 9 grade schools in Manchester, and I had to go to each school and teach shop for the boys. And it was once a week you went to each school. We taught them how to use a hammer, how to use a saw, how to make small products. Very, very educating, that was.
How many kids would have been in a class there, John? Because you're dealing with, tools, lumber. How many could you allow in a classroom for it to be a safety environment?
Sometimes there would be 15, sometimes 20,
Okay,
big classes.
okay. And then next door neighbor. Who was your next door neighbor?
Well, my next door neighbor was the vice president of Harvey Construction. And he says, "Do you want a summer job?" And I said, "Sure." So I went to work for Harvey Construction, but I had to get a what do they call it? You had to be okayed by the laborers union. You had to join the union in order to work for a company like that. So I had joined the union, and I stayed in construction work for the rest of my life.
Wow, wow. And he sent you to Plymouth one time, probably in the late 1970s, I think you shared with me, and you were working on a specific building at the college.
Yeah, on Boyd Hall. They were going to put a new water line in, and coming digging down the road that goes to Boyd, there was a very big boulder, and they couldn't use dynamite to break it up. So I was trained in how to use pressure from a machine that would split a rock, and you drill a hole and you put the thing in, and the pressure outside broke it up. So they sent me up here from Concord to take care of that. And you dug it out by hand, and so it took about 2 weeks that I was home.
Wow. And after this, you end up in Plymouth working for the Plymouth Manufacturing Company.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What were
I
your
was there 5
responsibilities?
years.
All right.
Worked for Chris McCormick. Not Chris McCormick. Yeah.
Oh, that's because of me. Thanks a lot.
Oh my heavens.
But what was your job there?
Huh?
What would you have done at the bobbin factory, Plymouth Manufacturing?
I sharpened all the dies and everything for paint paddles, worked on all the machines, kept them running,
Here we go.
a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. Then you were there for a handful of years.
About 5 years, yeah.
Yep. And then you ended up in the same position that your father had.
Right. When he retired, I luckily got that job.
Mm-hmm.
Politics, I think it was.
Whoa. So you were in charge of the water and sewer system there. For how long?
Maybe 3 years, 4 years.
Is there any story or memory that you can think of during your time there? I don't even quite know what the responsibilities related to that
Well, you
would
had
be.
to take care of all the pumps and read meters. You did a little bit of everything, but every time there was a big break in the water line, you had to fix it. And it was and of course you had all the septic system, the whole system. You had both things, there was a lot going on, and it was mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm. One time I had come to you, John, because I was writing a short story on the trough, the water trough that was on the north side of the common. And some of our audience may not know that, but if you go down to Crystal Springs, you will see a trough there. My assumption is it could be the same one. It has a date on it of 1881.
Yeah.
And I guess I had asked you at the time, being a person that was knowledgeable in this, why was the trough placed there? Where I'm taking you back now, and if you don't
By
have
the end of the,
on the north end of the common.
well, that's where, back way, there's all kinds of springs that come off the hill. And there was a natural spring that came off and came down and was piped down to that water trough where the horses could stop and drink and stuff. And when they had the fire in the Congregational Church and it burnt down, they wanted to build a new one. So, but the state law said that you had to have fire protection for that building. And in order to have fire protection, they had to go over and cut into the line in front of Volpe's store and go across the road and up into where the new church was. Well, there was so much water in the trench that they had to have, I think it was 6 pumps going all the time in order to get the line for the church to go up through there. And all of Main Street, all the way from South Main to North Main, where the hill goes up, those are all springs in there. And they're all more or less routed to come into the Pemmy River.
Wow. For me, that was really fun to listen to. I mean, I'm taking you back 100+ years, that's for sure, 150 years, but I never thought about it, that we are built on a hill, and
that's
the
all
water has to go someplace, sure.
Spring water.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's neat, that's neat. What have you done since retirement? How have you kept yourself busy since retirement?
Well, I've done a lot of cutting grass, cutting trees, local people that were friends, and I would help them out doing their, what they needed done around their house, Eddie Potter's house, Danny Gibbons' house, Mrs. French's house, Mrs. Bartlett's house. There was probably 8 or 10 houses that I used to go around and take care of the houses and cut the grass and cut what trees needed to be cut.
You're a great handyman.
Well, I don't know how handy, but I was a man.
I'm just thinking of all the names you just mentioned, and for so many of us in the audience, they're going to remember those names. And a few not with us.
In fact, about 2 weeks ago, Denny Gibbons died, and as good a man as he was like a father to a lot of people in Plymouth. And his daughter Mitzi is carrying on the same tradition that Denny did. He would do anything for anybody, and people don't realize how much he did for the people of Plymouth. And he's gone now, but he will be sorely missed by a lot of people.
Do you remember how old Denny was when he passed away?
He was 78.
78?
Excuse me, 88.
I think that sounds better.
Yeah, he was 5 years older than I am.
Okay. So that means we can figure out how old John
Don't
Wood is
worry
right
about
now.
it,
Never
John.
mind, but we can figure that out. The audience can do that.
Yeah.
All right. John, I'd like to talk about the town next. I'd like to give you a topic, and you can come back with me with some memories that you have. All set?
Well, okay. You're
Yeah.
going to give me the topic?
Oh, sure. I'm the boss. You okay with that? You better be. All right, here we go. Reflections of living in Plymouth as a kid, as a young child. What was it like living here way back when?
Well, we had a house that we lived in across from the Roby Farm out in West Plymouth, where his farm's still there. But playing with the cows and the steers, and I learned how to drive the truck out in the field. Ken Roby let us play around the farm, and it was real exciting. Very exciting.
Let's see. Oh, you mentioned once to me, and I wrote it down, you're playing a basketball game at Plymouth, and you played a lot of sports during your youth. And this particular one had an interesting story behind it. Do you dare share that with the audience today? A lot of time has passed, so I think we're okay.
Okay, well, what happened was when Coach Bizzano was coaching here, there was very few JVs. So he always used to have a couple of kids from the 7th and 8th grade come over and play on the JVs. So one day he picked me and Leo Olette to come over and play on the JVs. So I was awful happy, and I left my house and I said, well, I'll go down to York's drugstore and have a frap before I go up to the school. So I go in York's drugstore and sit down, and Ethel worked there, and she was a nice lady, and she did everything. She cooked, she made frap, she filled out prescriptions and everything. I was really a hard-working lady. So I ordered a black and white frap, sat down, and in comes the Conway boys. Russell Conway and Ronald Conway come on, and they sit one on each side of me. And I had something, I had to get up and do something for Ethel. And then I sat down again, and I'm drinking my black and white frap, and I says, oh my God, this don't taste very good. And he says, well, come on, let's go. We got to get up to the school because of the JV game. So I said, all right, we'll get up. So I finished the frap, and we went up to the game. So this was the first case that I ever had and didn't know what it was, but it was diarrhea. So we went up to the school, and we were warming up and everything. The game starts. And John Foley was a referee, along with, what the hell was the other guy's name? Doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm dribbling the ball down the court, and all of a sudden the diarrhea hits. And I said, oh my God, what's the matter? So I said, uh-oh. So in the gym, in Spear Gym, the men's locker room was on one side of the stage, and the ladies were on the other side of the stage. So I'm dribbling the ball, and I dribble into the boys' bathroom, open the door and sit down and do number 2. And of course, I didn't know what diarrhea was back then, but I found out fast. Anyway, but then all of a sudden there's a knock on the door. I said, what? He says, this is John Foley. Where the hell is the basketball? Give us the basketball back. So I said, okay, and I rolled the basketball out from under the door. He says, thank you, and he says, went back out, and they kept the game going.
So what did your friends do?
Huh?
What did they put into your frap?
Well, I'm pretty sure they put some laxative in the. That's why I didn't taste so good.
Uh-huh.
And
good friends,
that's what
John.
gave me the diarrhea.
Good friends.
Yeah.
Good friends.
Oh, good friends, the Conway boys. And to carry that further, I'm in debt to the family because with in the old days, we could take a bus and go over to Bristol to, what's that park over there at Bristol where you swim? I can't think of it. Can you think of it?
Not in Bristol, no. Is it part of their community? They have a community park there.
Oh, what's that park name?
Okay, somebody will call in. Keep going. Somebody will call in.
Well, anyway, I started swimming. I looked out by they had a raft there, and I see a couple nice looking girls out there, so I said, well, I'll swim out and say hello to them. So I'm swimming out, and the wind's blowing, and all of a sudden a wave hits me right in the face, and I go down. Well, Patsy Conway, the Conway brothers' sister, jumps off the raft and swims out and pulls me up and gets me up on the raft, and that saved my life or I'd be dead.
Wow. We're talking Newfound.
Newfound Lake.
There we go.
What's that park?
Oh, I don't know, but it's Newfound. Go to Newfound Lake.
Right. There's a park there that the kids from Plymouth would get on a bus and go over, and I almost drowned, and she saved my life.
Wow.
But the other two boys are giving me diarrhea, but the daughter's saving my life, so it all evened out. One hand washes the other.
You played so much sport in your life growing up, and you once talked to me about the basketball coach, Bernie Smith.
Oh yeah, Bernie Smith. He did all the young kids' sports. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great man.
And where did you play for him? I mean, was it just
Well,
in the
he had
local area?
Plymouth Youth Club, and it was like 7th and 8th grade. They didn't have a team in 7th and 8th grade. It was the Plymouth Youth Club. He was the coach, and he lined up where we went down to Boston Garden, and at halftime with the Celtics games, our team would play some team from somewhere else in Massachusetts. But back in those days, there was no 93 or anything else, and it was a long drive from Plymouth, New Hampshire, and the parents would drive the cars down. The game would get over, and it's a nighttime game, and then have to drive all the way back to Plymouth. I don't know how they did it, really, with no real transportation, no buses or anything like that. But it was great fun to go down there and play at halftime.
So we should acknowledge what he did for a lot of the young kids in the area.
Bernie Smith did everything. He had softball leagues, he had this, he had that, and he had two sons that were really good ball players at the high school. Yeah.
That's great. When we're showing pictures in the very beginning, you said something as each picture went by. Oh, that's Livermore, that's where I was born. But then we showed the picture of the bank, and there was Eisenhower there.
Yeah. When President Eisenhower came to Plymouth to break a beer bottle against the building.
That's not true. That's not true.
Oh, wasn't it?
No, they took a pair of scissors and cut a ribbon.
They cut the ribbon.
Okay. We're going to get in trouble. We're going to get in trouble.
I'm really off the launch on that one. But anyway, I was standing right behind Eisenhower, the president, and all of a sudden 2 guys come over and they picked me up and just moved me back about 10 feet and set me down there, because you're not supposed to be anywhere near the president.
And that's one event that people have talked about over and over again. We can remember exactly where we were on that special day in 55, 1955. Very fortunate, so many people can say.
I got my one day of fame.
By the FBI or the service.
Secret Service lifted me up and got me out of there.
You've already said who you have worked for over time. And those names, as you said, do resonate. They lived here for years. Denny Dearborn, Morabito, the coin shop man, and Mr. Courier. Yeah, you've always kept yourself busy.
Ernie Chamberlain. There's a lot of good guys that are gone.
Yeah. You mentioned when you were at Hillsborough High School. Oh, I might get this wrong, so come back at me. Jim Damaris taught at Hillsborough High School. Yeah.
He was at the high school, and he also taught, he was principal down to Hillsborough High School before he came to Plymouth.
All right. But there was something about a basketball league that started there?
Right. There was between Henniker, Hillsborough, Ware, Goffstown, there was a lot of good basketball players, so we had a faculty team that played New England College, Hawthorne College, and it was just practice games and everything. And Damaris wanted to play on the team, and we wouldn't let him. We told him he was not good enough.
In jest. So, I hope it's in jest. Did
it's
you?
just in jest,
Okay,
yes. So
okay.
he got really mad about that. But anyway, that same group of guys started a bowling team. And they got even with me and wouldn't let me bowl. So for what we did to Damaris, they did to me and wouldn't let me bowl.
Oh, that's neat. And that's how you got to know Jim.
Huh?
That's how you got to know Jim.
Well, I knew him from teaching that he taught, my brother taught with Jim
That's right. All right.
in Goffstown.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Plymouth for just a bit in regard to maybe the weather. I always ask this question, and it's interesting what people come back to me with. What do you remember with your decades living here of issues we have had with weather over time? It could be floods. It could be...
Yeah, the floods.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing was the floods. Eddie Doggett had a car shop over on the interval, and maybe twice a year we'd have a flood. And we had to go over there and take everything out and put it on the lifts. And by the time we're done, we're in water up to our shoulders and trying to get things. And the floods were terrible. But in the last 20 years, there hasn't been hardly any floods.
Very few. Very few.
And I found at the senior center, there used to be a plaque on the side of the senior center that was the 1927 flood. And somebody stole it. But there was still a marking where that was. So we made a thing to put on there that shows in 1927, as this is how high the water got. And it got up to about 4 feet on that building, which is a lot of water to be around.
If you haven't been down there, you should go down there and see where the leveling...
Right, it's unbelievable.
It's amazing. It could have come up that high.
I know.
No. Interesting.
Yeah.
You had shared with me one time many trees in the area fell down. And so much so they had to employ a lot of the kids in the area, youth in the area.
Well, up in when the 38 hurricane came through, all the big elm trees that were around the common all came down. So New England telephones lost all their lines and everything, and all the trees are down. So what are they going to do? They hired all the college kids they could and all the high school kids they could to chop up the trees. There was no big chainsaws or anything like that. It was axes. So my father and my uncle, Harry, were some of the kids that were chopping trees up. And if you did that, if you chopped the trees up and worked full time, they would pay your college education. And my Uncle Harry stayed right there and chopped and chopped. My father couldn't because he hit his foot with an axe, so he was laid up and couldn't do it. But when they got all done, my Uncle Harry got into Dartmouth, and it was all paid for, and then he went to work as a field manager for New England Tel. And then he ended up, little do we know, one of our famous football coaches, Chuck Lenahan, married a girl named Whitehouse.
Carol
Whitehouse?
Very good.
Yeah, Carol Whitehouse. He married her, and Carol Whitehouse was my father's secretary, not my father's, my uncle's secretary for New England Tel.
Strange world.
Small world. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's how I got to know Chuck Lenahan.
And that's a story for another
Great
time.
football player, coach.
But amazing story, how they employed the young kids. They needed people.
They needed people that were willing to work, because the whole area was just a total devastation.
We have pictures. You can see the trees are across the road from one side of going up Highland Street to the other side.
Yeah.
It really must have taken great effort on many people's part.
They had to utilize high school and college kids to pay tuition for those kids to go to school if they helped out. Is utterly out of question today.
Amazing.
They would never do it today. Of course, we have chainsaws now.
That's right. That's right. I always think if I'm going to talk about Plymouth, I have to talk about the Plymouth Fair.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Did you ever have a chance to go?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Across the street from the fair was Marcy Allen and Bert Allen's fields. And when the fair was in, my brother and I used to park cars over there for Marcy Allen at $0.25 a car.
That sounds like pretty good money.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, all right.
yeah.
I was speaking to a gentleman on the phone last night that lived in the area. His father started a store here, and I said, and he's from Texas, so I'm on the phone last night. I said, how much did you get paid for working for your dad for a week? And he said, 10 cents a week.
Yeah.
So
I
you
used to get $0.25.
you're making money.
Yeah.
You're making money. All right, then. Anything else about the Hell Drivers? Because we had just talked about Denny Dearborn.
Yeah, Denny Dearborn was traveled all over the state and all over New England driving hell cars. And who the hell was with him? Well, Denny Day was a announcer. Carl Hartz was a driver.
Very good.
And of course they had Denny Dearborn, Warren Randlett. They all raced up to Thunder Road in Berry, Vermont. And there was a whole gang of people from Plymouth that used to go up there and watch the races.
Wow.
But Denny was the #1, and Harold Hannaford used to drive for Denny sometimes, and sometimes for himself. But he won the milk bowl 2 or 3 times. Twice, I think, Harold won it both times.
Wow. Wow.
So there was a lot to do around Plymouth.
Well, I think that's, as we drive by the area today, we automatically look to our right, going in this direction, saying,
Yeah.
that was the fair.
Yeah.
Those were days that we really miss.
Unreal.
Yeah, really miss. I've asked you this before. Is there a date that's in your memory, an event, a wedding, a death, something that occurred that affected you drastically?
Well, I think when they had, what was this, for the history of the, they had the big parade for the 1963 or something.
It could have been 63, absolutely.
It was a big,
Bicentennial.
They had the Atlantic station down where Samar's store was. It was now a gas station. And some lady from New York was just passing through. She didn't know there was a event going on, and she needed gas, so she pulled in the Atlantic station. And Eddie says, "John, go out and help that lady fill up that car." And so I went out and I walked around the car, and I says, "Where is the gas tank on this?" And she says, "I don't know." She says, "Don't you know anything?" I says, No, I live in Massachusetts. I'm just up there on vacation." And that, so she got out and showed us where of course we were all drunk from the parade.
Okay, we're going to move on.
Huh?
Great celebration.
Oh my God, what a time that was. I think they had a dance that night, and nobody went to the dance. They were all too drunk.
Oh, John. Again, with your years living here, what changes have you seen? I ask this question to everybody. What changes have occurred over time here in Plymouth?
The big change is the college, the buildings, the dormitories, everything. And if we didn't have the college, it would be a ghost town. I mean, the D&M fields, the hockey rink, the track building, the brand new football field we got now, all artificial. I mean, people don't realize there's almost 5,000 people that work at the college, and there's almost 5,500 kids that go. That's a lot of people to bring money into this area. So it's well worth it.
Well, you think of what the population was of the college in the early 50s, a few hundred people, and then today, as you said, the
Yeah.
faculty members that work there, the staff that works
Right.
there, plus the students.
Right, when I went to Keene, Keene had like 200 students, and Plymouth had like 150 students. Now it's over
It's
5,000.
amazing.
Unreal
amazing.
how
It's
it's
amazing.
grown.
John, in the town of Plymouth, are there one or two people that have affected you, that you became friends with, you respected, you worked with them perhaps, that affected you over
Well,
time?
the big one was Denny Dearman. He was like a father to me. Wally Morbido, Eddie Doggett, Fletcher Adams. There's all kinds of people you get to you know, your favorites. I was pretty close with my brother. Well, there's too many to even think about. But Denny Dearborn was probably the biggest. People don't realize what Denny did for this town. Nobody knew that he gave money out to needy families and everything else, and if something needed done at their house, I would go do it, or he would hire somebody to do it. And Charlie Evans was the same way. And the Samaha family was good that way.
Well, you talked about your dad, that your dad would do anything for anybody. Your father.
Well, yeah, he didn't like it known, but he did a lot too for people.
A lot of people that do wonderful things don't want it to be shared.
Yeah.
They just know it needs to be done.
Yeah.
Your best friend. Who was your best friend when you were growing up?
Probably Leo Ouellette.
Mm-hmm.
It was surprising because when he was in 8th grade, he owned a car. So he had to stay back a few classes, but anyway, when he had a car, and I was so small I could stand up in the back seat and look out the window. And we used to drive around town and hit the snowbanks and bounce back in the road. And he married Florence Robinson.
They owned a
The
laundromat?
Laundromat, yeah.
Yes. I'm doing that
That's
now.
where we married Florence.
Mm-hmm.
She died first, and now Leo's still alive, and he lives out in Las Vegas with his son.
Oh, nice.
What the hell's his son's name? Robbie.
Robbie. Good memory. Good memory. Where did you hang out when you were a youngster? Was there a place in town that you people liked to gather, your friends?
Oh, that's a hard one. There used to be a lot of swimming area over by the where the ice house was, and they always had a good youth program here,
Nice.
where you could take bus trips and go over to that lake.
Newfound?
Lake. You could always go over there and swim out to the raft, and
Nice.
there was plenty to do.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to switch a little bit, if I can, and talk about the war. Did you, did you participate in any wars?
No, just in the household.
And what about, you had, you're taking me back, you are. But during the war, I think you wanted to go into the war, or a group of you got together to go down to...
When they were having the draft, they had a train twice. I was on a train. You had to go to White River Junction from Plymouth, get on a train, go down to Meredith, go in and have your physical and everything else, and then get on the train, come back to Plymouth. It was quite a trip. The first time, I didn't get drafted. So the second, about 5 years later, during Vietnam, the same thing. There was almost all the people that were eligible to be drafted from Plymouth had to go over to, what the hell did I say that town was? Oh, White River Junction. Get on the train, get down to Manchester, be all. So there was about 50 of us that went on the train from this area.
Wow.
2 came back to Plymouth. The rest, they were
Drafted immediately? They
Yeah,
took them immediately?
Immediately gone.
Wow. Wow.
And two came back,
Mm-hmm.
Denny Day and me. And everybody says, how the hell did you get back, John? Well, I turned 26. And 26 was the year where you could not go be drafted. You were not in good shape. You weren't, you 26 and over, you could not be drafted. They all wanted younger men that could fight, that could run, that could hit, the whole deal. So
And
I lucked
26
out.
was considered
And,
too old.
yeah.
26 was considered too old.
Right.
Amazing.
And Denny
Amazing.
Day came back to take care of his mother because Spike Day was Denny's older brother. He was already in the service, I believe, so nobody take care of the mother, so Denny got out of it too. So everybody else went.
Again, going backwards. Go through the main street if you want to, but think of businesses that you frequented but are no longer there. They're gone.
Well,
I'm going to start because you said one already. And next to my dad's store, Atlantic Richland, Exxon, it's gone.
right,
And they took down a massive building, a brick building.
right, that was the Smart building.
Yeah, they took that down in order to have a gasoline station.
Atlantic Station.
Yep, but it's no longer.
And across the street was Potter's Restaurant.
One,
That's all gone.
that is. Yeah.
And now I see that Plymouth Furniture Company is for sale.
Oh, they've mentioned, they've advertised that one time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's about ready to go out.
Mhm. And we had a new store
The other
going
end
in.
of town was all kinds of,
Yeah. Anderson's Bakery left us, but now we've had a new store maybe going in right now as we speak.
yeah,
It's being remodeled.
yeah, they're remodeling, yeah.
I think of all of the pharmacies that we used to have as kids,
Oh,
and they're
boy.
gone. And they're gone. You said it before.
York's Drugstore, Farley's Drugstore, Newberry's, and I think there was one other one, there was 4 or 5.
Geyer's,
Guy's,
McCrillis's. Yep. Long time. That's where you and I would go and we'd have a frap.
well now they
Or
get,
Sunday.
now they get Bayreuth and Rite Aid and Hannaford has it, and all your other stores are taking the place of it.
John, we're almost getting time to say goodbye to the audience.
Goodbye.
And have we missed anything? Is there anything else you'd like to share? Thinking back, your years with your family growing up, your friends, going to school here, elementary school, high school. What do you remember about, what will we continue to remember about Plymouth, those years?
Well, one thing I remember, if you got in trouble athletically, you had to run the hill. And where Spear Gym is now, not the new one, but the old one that we had in high school, right beside it, going up the hill, was a sharp little hill. It wasn't 20 feet long, but you had to run that so many times, and that's like going up a hill, unbelievable how steep. And you could only do it maybe 5 or 6 times. And so I got so tired one time I rolled down to the bottom and they had to pick me up. I mean, it was just treacherous. And so...
Are you saying that you got into trouble? And that was your punishment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It's, it were hard times, a lot of fights, and I always came out on the end of it. But one time I got caught doing something and I had to run the hill, and boy, that was bad. But
if you had a group of kids around here right now, and they were listening to you, and you were closing down like we are, what advice might you give them? Your years, how many years have you been living on this earth, and what you have experienced? what would you say to them?
Like I always say, don't smoke.
Okay.
The biggest thing today is don't smoke. It kills you. The second thing is alcohol makes you happy, and it's better to be happy than to stop drinking. But don't overdrink. What else did you tell me not to say?
Oh, I'm not telling you that one. That third one we're not sharing with this audience.
Oh, did I ever tell you about Lover's Lane?
No, I don't think you did, John.
Well,
Is this something we can share with the audience?
I would say so.
Oh, okay.
Right beside Smokey Sears' house, there was a road down in there that came from the ice house to by Smokey's house, and that was known as Lover's Lane, or Honeymoon Walk, or whatever they wanted to call it. So Marion Jocks.
We're not gonna. Should we say names?
I
don't know what you're going to say to the audience, so I'm a little nervous. I'm not
No,
sure.
so Marion Jocks told me one time, she says, John, somebody wants to meet you up on Honeymoon Walk on such and such a time, and I said, okay. So I walked up on Lover's Lane and stood around, all of a sudden a person walks up there, and it's a person that I secretly loved but didn't know about it. She told me I did anyway. And, well,
I'm not saying anything. My hands are crossed, though.
well, anyway, it's somebody that I never expected to want to see me on Lovers. I said, what are you doing here? And she says, I wanted to tell you you're going to be my boyfriend. I says, what? I'm going to be your boyfriend? And she says, yes. I says, I'd love that. And we were boyfriend and girlfriend for another week or two.
I think based upon that short story for my audience, we're going to say, thank you, John, for joining us today and sharing your memories of Plymouth.
I never told you.
John, I'm not sure they're going to ask me back. My audience, thank you for joining us today. We're almost out of time. And I hope you enjoyed it, John, sitting down
I loved it.
and sharing your stories about your time
At least
in
there's
Plymouth.
some heat down here today. My God, was it cold yesterday.
I think it's cold today, too.
That wind was blowing down. Oh.
It has been an unusual year. There's the amount of wind and chill, cold that we have had. But we need to get back on task, or they're not going to send us back here, that's for sure.
Because I went down to a softball game, and I used to have hair, and the wind was blowing so hard it blew all my hair off.
On that
So
note,
now I have to wear a hat.
we're going to thank you for joining us with John Wood and myself today, and we'll see you in another month or so with another story from other folks. But always, the stories that we are suggesting sharing with you today, please consider doing the same with your families. Again, this is me. Take those pictures, write on the backs of them the names of the people, the event that you are at that particular time, and even think about doing what we're doing now. Get a video camera out and see if Mom and Dad will chat about their lives here in Plymouth, grandparents of the same. We just want to share some of the history that we have for future generations. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in another month.